A Nobel laureate has graded Donald Trump's economic plan for America. And here's a clue. It's pretty much the same grades that Trump got way back when he was in school. Susan Wright brings us this little tidbit, Red State Today. Joseph Stiglitz is a Nobel laureate and a former chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors from 1995 to 1997. During an interview with Bloomberg News, the Columbia University professor was asked to speak of the impact of a President Trump, which will never exist, on the economy, should that happen, and if he attempted to do all the things he's promised his supporters he would do, many, of course, being wildly contradictory. Trump has continuously promised to put big tariffs on red Chinese imports. Asked how that would affect the United States, Stiglitz responded with the following, quote, "Tariffs on red China would have two immediate consequences. One, American workers who depend on low-cost red Chinese goods would see their standard of living fall immediately because the cost of goods formerly imported from red China would go up. That's the other side of the coin. We're shipping jobs overseas. Yeah, but it costs less to make products that Americans like overseas because government is too involved in the labor market. It is driven between them and big labor. They've driven up the cost of labor in this country. That's what needs to come down. That's where the focus of economic policy in this country should be. Deregulation. Deregulation, not starting trade wars. Remove the incentive for companies to send jobs and manufacturing overseas, and guess what? They won't have as much of a reason to send them overseas in the first place. Even to the degree that they actually are, which Trump inveterately exaggerates, like he did again today, blatantly slandering Ford Motor Company by claiming they were going to send all their manufacturing to Mexico, which was bohunk, prompting a prompt and severe response from the CEO of Ford Motor Company with chapter and verse, fact after fact after fact, pointing out that not only are they not going to do that, but they have not been doing that, and they have been moving jobs back from Mexico to the United States. The only thing they send to Mexico is the less profitable models for manufacture, not the most profitable models. Those are still made right here. Trump is a liar, in other words. Now, the likelihood, according to Professor Stiglitz, that these industries will return to the United States is very low for the reasons I just told you, the ridiculously inflated cost of labor in this country. On the other side, there would be retaliation. This is why they call it trade war. Red China would have within the World Trade Organization the right to impose retaliation against buying all the things that they buy from the United States. It would be, ta-da, a trade war. This is where protectionism always leads. The first Great Depression back in the 1930s, 80 years ago, should really be known to history as the Great Trade War, because that's what it was. Red China would only do it selectively, and the probability is that there would be more jobs destroyed than would be created. Many more. The net effect on employment would be negative. It would drive up unemployment, not bring it down. It would destroy jobs in this country, not bring jobs back to America. I think the U.S. would find itself the big loser. End of quote. This goes decidedly against the narrative that Trump and his minions like to push in their claim that as a good businessman, and Trump's not a good businessman, what does 4 bankruptcies tell you? And his affinity for high interest debt. But as a good businessman, he'll bring jobs back to America. No, he's a crappy businessman. He's a corrupt crony capitalist who will destroy jobs in America. The two kind of go together. It shows a pointed weakness in dealing with the complicated mechanics of the economy that go beyond opening a few hotels. Stiglitz was further asked about the validity of the concerns Trump raises about Red China and the trade relationship our nation currently has with them, resuming the Stiglitz quote from Bloomberg News. What he is identifying is a standard naive concern. When I say naive, I mean wrong. That foreigners can undersell us. Would he be any happier if they had a different exchange rate and lower wages? No. They would be selling their goods into the U.S. trade, or they would be selling their goods into the U.S. Trade is based on comparative advantage. We have lost comparative advantage partly because we didn't have a good manufacturing policy. In other words, labor costs were too damn high, as well as other regulatory costs. And the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world, let's not forget that. We still have a comparative advantage for high tech. No economist would ever say you look at bilateral trade. This is a global trade system, and we are irretrievably and inextricably tied to it. We might buy manufactured goods and have a trade deficit with Red China, but then we sell goods elsewhere. You cannot look at it in a bilateral way. The whole framework in which he looks at it is something that would be given a student in a principles course in economics an F. F, F, F. It's like Mr. Crocker on Fairly Odd Parents. I'm going to give you an F. Well, let me, however you, does that work? With the camera. Now, asked if he would grade Trump an F on the economy, Stiglitz confirmed that yes, he would give Trump an F, stating he is economically illiterate. He's not a good businessman. 4 bankruptcies. And he's not a good businessman because he didn't build his business. He didn't create his fortune. He inherited it. $200 million fortune. He inherited. Donald Trump was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, has never, trust fund kid, never built a damn thing in his entire life. And because he's a crappy businessman, he loves to take shortcuts. And he's created this huge persona, mostly out of narcissistic personality disorder, but also to cover up for his inadequacies and ubiquitous failures. Nobody who brags that much, nobody who says I, who speaks of himself in the third person, you'd think I was talking about Barack Obama, wouldn't you? Nobody like that does that unless they're compensating for something. And I'm not just talking about his stubby little fingers. But the problem is, just as Trump doesn't understand economics, neither do those who support him. Any of them. He has pulled a massive con on the American people, due largely in part to a dumbed-down society that lacks the intellectual curiosity to dig any deeper than the surface of their anger at the system.